I opened the door and saw her, on her knees. Her lips moved slowly over her, savoring every second, every taste. Her fingers gripped her thighs, and her eyes, God, her eyes, were filled with a passion I hadn't seen in years. A hunger I had forgotten existed. She didn't notice me at first. But when she finally looked up, locking eyes with me, there was no guilt. No shame. Just something else. And that was the moment I realized this betrayal was far deeper than I ever imagined. The night was warm, the kind that made the city hum with quiet life even past midnight. I had finished work earlier than expected, my mind set on surprising my wife. A small, thoughtful gesture, picking up her favorite dessert from the bakery she loved, maybe a bottle of wine. I wanted to remind her that, despite the years, despite the quiet distance that had been growing between us, I still saw her. I parked in the driveway, the house bathed in soft golden light. From the outside, everything looked as it always did. Safe. Familiar. But as I stepped inside, I noticed something off. The house was too quiet. No television humming in the background. No music playing from the Bluetooth speakers she usually had on. Just silence, thick and expectant, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Then, I heard it. A muffled laugh. A soft moan. The unmistakable sounds of something intimate. My heart clenched. I told myself I was imagining it. That it was nothing. Maybe she was just on the phone. Maybe she was watching something. But I knew better. I took slow, deliberate steps toward the bedroom, my pulse hammering in my ears. The door was slightly ajar, a thin sliver of light spilling into the hallway. And then I saw it. Her. Not with another man. With her. Her best friend. The woman I had known for years. The woman I had welcomed into our home, into our lives, without a second thought. My wife's fingers traced delicate patterns along her friend's bare shoulder. Their bodies tangled in a way that left no room for doubt. And then I saw her lips part, her tongue sliding along the curve of the other woman's neck, slow, teasing, savoring. It wasn't a drunken mistake. It wasn't a moment of confusion. It was deliberate. Intentional. It was passion. And it wasn't for me. A sick feeling curled in my stomach. My grip on the doorknob tightened, and for a fleeting moment, I considered barging in, tearing the illusion apart, demanding answers. But I didn't. Instead, I watched. Not because I wanted to. Not because I enjoyed the sight. But because I needed to understand. I needed to see exactly what I had missed. How long had this been happening? How many times had she come home to me, kissed me, slept beside me, while her heart, her body, belonged to someone else? I didn't know how long I stood there, my breathing shallow, my mind screaming at me to move, to do something. But I couldn't. Then, as if sensing something, my wife suddenly stilled. She pulled back, her lips swollen, her breath uneven. Her eyes flickered toward the door. For one horrifying second, I thought she saw me. I thought the moment would shatter, that she would scramble to explain, that I would hear the lies forming on her lips before they even left her mouth. But she didn't. She just smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her friend's face. And then, in a whisper so soft I barely caught it. Stay the night. A sharp exhale left my lungs. I turned on my heel, walking back down the hallway, back into the darkness. Not tonight. Tonight, I wouldn't let her know I had seen. Tonight, I wouldn't confront her. Tonight, I wouldn't break. But tomorrow? Tomorrow, the game would begin. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene over and over in my head. My wife's laughter, the way her fingers traced along the woman's skin, the whispered invitation that still echoed in my ears. Stay the night. How many times had she said those words before? How many nights had I lain beside her, oblivious to what she was truly thinking? By the time the first light of dawn crept through the blinds, I had made my decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Confrontation meant giving her the power to manipulate the narrative, to twist the truth, to cry, to gaslight, to turn herself into the victim. No, if I wanted the truth, the whole truth, I had to be smarter. I had to play the game. So, when morning came, I put on my best performance. I walked into the kitchen as if nothing had happened, my expression relaxed, my voice steady. She was already there, standing by the coffee maker, her hair slightly damp from the shower, wearing the robe I had bought her last Christmas. She looked up when I entered, her lips curving into a soft smile. "Hey, you're up early." I nodded, forcing myself to return her smile. "Yeah, couldn't sleep much." I watched her closely, searching for signs of guilt. A hesitation, a nervous twitch, anything that would betray what she had done. But there was nothing. She was calm. Effortless. As if last night had been just another night. "Long day today?" she asked, sipping her coffee. I shrugged. "Same as always." "What about you?" She ran a hand through her hair, feigning a yawn. "Oh, you know, meetings, deadlines, the usual. I might grab dinner with some coworkers later. Just a casual thing." Casual. She was lying to my face, and she didn't even flinch. I nodded, playing along. "Sounds good." I was thinking about working late anyway. The moment the words left my mouth, something flickered in her eyes. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but I caught it. Relief. She was relieved. Relieved that I would be out. Relieved that she wouldn't have to come up with another excuse for why she wouldn't be home on time. I took a slow sip of my coffee, masking the storm brewing inside me. Let her think she's winning. Let her think I don't know. Because soon, she would see just how wrong she was. Later that night, I parked my car a few blocks away from the house, my heart hammering in my chest. I had told her I'd be working late. I had even sent her a text, making sure she thought I was still at the office. But I wasn't. I was here. Waiting. Watching. The lights in the house were on. Through the living room window, I could see her silhouette, pacing back and forth, phone in hand. A few minutes later, another car pulled up. And there she was. The woman from last night. Her best friend. My wife greeted her at the door, a smile spreading across her lips, her hand resting lightly on the other woman's waist as she pulled her inside. I clenched my jaw. They didn't even hesitate. Didn't even check to see if the coast was clear. They were comfortable. Too comfortable. This wasn't new. This had been happening for a long time. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about lust. This wasn't just some reckless mistake. This was something deeper. Something real. And that meant something dangerous. Because if my wife had fallen in love with someone else, I wasn't just losing my marriage. I was losing the woman I thought I knew. The question was, what was I willing to do about it? I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I should have walked up to that door right then and there. I should have burst inside and torn the mask off her face, exposed her, forced her to say it out loud. But I didn't. Because a part of me wasn't ready. Not to lose her. Not to hear the truth from her lips. Not to confirm that the woman I had built my life around, the woman I had loved, had already left me in every way that mattered. So I stayed in the car, watching through the windshield as the two of them disappeared inside. The curtains didn't close. They weren't even trying to hide it. I could see them moving through the living room, laughing, leaning too close, fingertips brushing, bodies swaying together in an unspoken rhythm. It was a dance, one they had practiced 1,000 times before. How long has this been happening? That question echoed in my mind, each syllable sinking deeper into my chest. The answer wouldn't change what was happening now. But I needed to know. Because if she had been lying to me for weeks, months, years, then maybe I had never really known her at all. The next morning, when I stepped inside the house, the scent of her perfume still lingered in the air. Faint, but unmistakable. She was already up, sitting at the kitchen table, sipping her coffee with the ease of someone who had nothing to hide. Or at least someone who thought she had nothing to hide. Her phone was face down on the table. Of course, it was. "You're home early," she said casually, not even looking up. I forced a chuckle. Didn't feel like staying late. She nodded, flipping through a magazine as if the conversation didn't matter. As if I didn't matter. I wanted to grab that phone and read every message. I wanted to shake her, make her look at me, make her see me. But instead, I leaned against the counter, watching her, studying her the way I should have been doing for months. "How was your night?" I asked. She didn't even hesitate. Uneventful. Just relaxed, watched some TV. And there it was. The lie. So smooth. So effortless. It should have cut me in half. But instead, it filled me with something else. Something dark. Something I wasn't sure I could control. Because if she could lie to me this easily, then I was going to make sure I became the man she never saw coming. Laying the trap. I spent the next few days preparing. I didn't confront her. I didn't accuse her. I played the part. I let her think I was the same man she had been fooling for months, maybe even years. I let her believe that I was still blind. Still oblivious. But behind the scenes, I was digging. I checked her emails. Her calendar. Her text messages when she wasn't looking. And what I found? It was worse than I imagined. This wasn't just some affair. This was a life she had built behind my back. Secret weekend trips. Dinners I had never known about. Gifts that had never made it into our house. A second world. One where I didn't exist. Where she wasn't my wife, she was someone else entirely. And the more I uncovered, the clearer it became. She had never planned on stopping. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was a choice. Every single time she kissed that woman, touched her, whispered to her, she was choosing her over me. Again. And again. And again. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, my pulse pounding in my ears. The man looking back at me wasn't the same man from last week. That man had hope. That man had love. That man had believed in her. But now, that man was gone. And in his place, a new version of me was being born. A version she wouldn't recognize. A version she would never see coming. Because if she thought she had one, if she thought I was just going to let this happen, she had no idea what was coming next. I spent the next week pretending. Pretending to be the same loving, clueless husband I had always been. Pretending I hadn't seen the way she touched her, the way her lips had lingered just a second too long. Pretending I wasn't planning something that would shatter her entire world. She had no idea. Every kiss she gave me felt like poison. Every touch, a mockery. But I let her. I let her think she was still in control. Because the moment she realized she wasn't, that was when the real fun would begin. The first move. I started small. Little things. Tiny shifts she wouldn't notice at first. She had her routine, her carefully curated double life, and I wasn't going to ruin it too soon. No, I wanted her comfortable. I wanted her to feel safe. So I asked about her day. Listened as she lied to my face about working late. I even booked a dinner reservation for us, just the two of us, acting like I was the same husband she thought she had fooled. And when she looked at me with that perfectly rehearsed smile, I almost laughed. She had no idea I had already seen the receipts from the dinner she had with her real date the night before. No idea I knew that the perfume she was wearing wasn't for me. No idea I was playing a game she was about to lose. Badly. Watching her crumble. The cracks in her confidence started small. One evening, I accidentally left my phone unlocked on the kitchen counter, a web page open, an article about infidelity, hidden signs, and what cheaters think they can get away with. She paused as she passed by, her fingers twitching at her sides. Her breath hitched. Good. I didn't say anything. Didn't acknowledge it. Just picked up my phone like nothing had happened and walked away. Let her sit with it. Let her wonder. Then I changed my schedule. Usually, I told her exactly when I'd be home. But one night, I stayed out late, long past when I was supposed to. Didn't text. Didn't call. Just walked in after midnight like I had nothing to explain. She was waiting. Where were you? She asked, her voice carefully controlled. I shrugged. Out. I watched her eyes narrow. Watched the panic flicker beneath the surface. Because for the first time, she wasn't the one holding the secrets. I was. And she hated it. Breaking her world apart. The real move came a few days later. I had found the perfect way to set the final stage. A trip. A romantic getaway, just the two of us. A last chance for her to make a choice. I booked a hotel. Packed our bags. Made it seem like I was the devoted husband trying to fix our marriage. And she played along. Because of course she did. She thought she had one. That she had convinced me, manipulated me, that she had me wrapped around her perfect little fingers. But what she didn't know, I had already invited her. The woman she had been sneaking around with. She was going to walk into that hotel room and see the truth laid out in front of her. She was going to feel exactly what I had felt. The shock. The betrayal. The slow, suffocating realization that everything was about to collapse. And I was going to watch. Every second of it. The air in the car was thick with tension. She didn't know why. Not yet. She thought this was a romantic getaway, one of my desperate attempts to rekindle the spark. I could see it in the way she glanced at me, her expression careful, expectant. Waiting. For a confession. For an apology. For me to tell her I was so damn lucky to have her and that I could never live without her. She was expecting a man who didn't know the truth. She was expecting someone else entirely. The setup. The resort was beautiful. Crisp ocean air. Expensive linen sheets. A private dinner on the terrace under dim candlelight. I had set the stage perfectly. And she was eating it up. She laughed, twirling the stem of her wine glass between delicate fingers. This was such a sweet idea, she purred. I was starting to think you had forgotten how to surprise me. I smirked. Oh, you have no idea. She reached across the table, her nails trailing over my wrist. A move that, once upon a time, would have sent a thrill down my spine. Now? I just watched her. She had no clue that someone else had already arrived. That she was already here. The moment of no return. I excused myself, leaving her with another full glass of wine. The hallway was dimly lit, my footsteps soundless as I moved to the hotel lobby. And there she was. Her lover. Dark curls spilling over her shoulders, a confident smirk playing on her lips. She thought she had been invited by her. That they were about to have their own little getaway, a secret weekend away from her clueless, doting husband. Too bad for her. Too bad for both of them. I stepped forward. Her smirk faltered. Wait, what are you? I handed her the key. To our suite. She's waiting for you, I murmured. And then I walked away. The grand reveal. I took my time. Let her make the choice. Let her walk into the trap with her own 2 feet. I imagined the moment in my head, the soft click of the door, the confusion flickering across my wife's face, the horror setting in as the truth clawed its way into her chest. I gave it a minute. Then 2. Then 3. And then, finally, I walked in. Silence. Not the comfortable, warm kind. No, this was the other kind. The kind of silence that follows devastation. The kind that precedes destruction. They were both frozen. My wife, still clutching her wine glass, her fingers shaking. Her lover, standing near the foot of the bed, eyes wide, mouth parted in stunned disbelief. I let the moment breathe. Let it stretch. Then I smiled. Surprise. Her breakdown. At first, she tried to laugh it off. This is a joke, right? She stammered, forcing a breathless chuckle. This is some twisted prank? I said nothing. Just watched as her mind scrambled, tripping over its own lies, searching for an escape that didn't exist. Her lover? She was already backing toward the door. She knew what this was. She knew there was no talking her way out. But my wife. She wasn't ready to give up the act. Listen, we can talk about this, she rushed out. We can, this isn't what you think, I swear. I let her flail. I let her drown in her own desperation. And then, finally, I leaned in. Voice low. Controlled. It's exactly what I think. And that was when she knew. That was when she saw it in my eyes. The game was over. And I had won. There's something eerie about watching a person realize their world is about to collapse. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's silent. A slow unraveling, piece by piece, as their mind works through every possible way out, only to realize there isn't one. And right now, my wife was drowning in that silence. Her hands trembled around the stem of her wine glass, her lips parted in shock, her chest rising and falling in shallow, panicked breaths. Her lover? She was already halfway to the door. Eyes darting between me and my wife, searching for the quickest escape. Smart girl. But I wasn't ready to let them off that easy. Not yet. A slow, delicious moment. I exhaled slowly, taking my time as I stepped inside the room, the door clicking shut behind me. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them could. They were waiting. For me to lash out. For me to throw something, scream, break down like the heartbroken husband they expected me to be. I almost laughed. As if I would waste my anger on them. Instead, I moved to the bar, pouring myself a drink. My movements were calm. Calculated. I took a slow sip, letting the moment stretch, letting their terror seep into the air like a thick, intoxicating perfume. Go ahead, I said finally, setting my glass down with a quiet clink. My wife swallowed. What? I smiled. Tell me a story. Her brows furrowed. What kind of story? She whispered. I leaned back against the bar, arms crossed. Tell me how it happened, I murmured. Tell me how you looked me in the eyes every morning and told me you loved me while sneaking around with her. She flinched. Her lover sucked in a sharp breath. I dragged my gaze over to her. And you, I added. How did it feel? Pretending to be my wife's friend while screwing her behind my back? The woman stiffened. Look, I didn't mean for this to happen. I laughed. A slow, dark sound that made my wife flinch. You didn't mean for it to happen? I echoed. Tell me, did you just trip and fall into my wife's bed? Neither of them answered. Of course, they didn't. Because there was nothing to say. Breaking her down. My wife finally spoke. Please, she whispered. Can we just talk about this? Just the two of us? I tilted my head. You want privacy? She nodded quickly, desperation in her eyes. I smirked. That's funny, I mused. You didn't seem to mind an audience when you were in bed with her. She sucked in a sharp breath. I turned to her lover. How long? I asked. The woman froze. What? I smiled. How long have you been sleeping with my wife? Her throat bobbed. I already knew the answer. But I wanted to hear it. I wanted to watch them squirm. 6 months, she finally choked out. I whistled low. Damn, I muttered, shaking my head. That's longer than I thought. My wife's face crumpled. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. I let out a slow breath, dragging my tongue across my teeth. You know what the funny thing is? I said softly. She looked up. I smiled. You already did. And then I pulled out my phone. Because the game wasn't over yet. The last move. Her face drained of color. What are you doing? She stammered. I unlocked my screen, tapped the video file, and turned the volume up. And there it was. Her voice. Her lover's voice. The recording of everything. My wife gasped. Her lover? She went completely still. I let the audio play for just a few more seconds, just long enough for them to hear their own moans spilling from the speaker, before I hit pause. Silence. The kind that suffocates. The kind that destroys. My wife shook her head violently. No, 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 how did you? How did I get this? I finished for her. That's the wrong question. I stepped closer, my voice turning cold. The right question is, who else has it? Her breath hitched. Wait, she rasped. You didn't. I smiled. Oops, I murmured. Sent it to a few people. Friends. Family. Your boss, too. You know, just in case. She collapsed. Her body gave out. She sank to the floor, gasping, shaking, her nails digging into the carpet. Her lover? She was already moving. You're crazy, she hissed, her voice breaking. I shrugged. Maybe, I admitted. But I'm not the one who destroyed my own life. And then, finally, I turned for the door. Because I had one last surprise waiting. The final goodbye. I walked out of the suite, leaving them there. One crumbling under the weight of her own sins. The other trying to escape the wreckage. And just as I reached the elevator, I saw her. Standing there. The real surprise. The one person my wife would never expect. Her sister. Her best friend. The one I had called the moment I found out about the affair. The one who had been by my side as I plotted every single move. She turned to me, a smirk curling at the corner of her lips. Did they take the bait? She asked smoothly. I laughed. Oh, babe, I murmured, sliding an arm around her waist. They never even saw the hook. And as the elevator doors closed behind us, I took one last deep breath. And I smiled. Because finally, I was free. Some people think revenge is about rage. About throwing punches. About screaming and breaking things and making a scene. They think it has to be messy. But those people, they don't know how to win. Because the best revenge is clean. It's cold. Calculated. Delivered with a smile. And right now, as I stepped into the elevator with her, my wife's own sister, I had never felt more victorious. The fallout begins. By the time we reached the lobby, my phone was already lighting up with messages. Her. The woman who betrayed me. My wife was trying to call. Over. And over. And over again. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because she was already drowning. The empire collapses. I had spent the past 3 months setting this up. Every detail. Every single move. I had gathered the evidence. Collected the recordings. Pulled all the right strings. And now, my wife's world was imploding. The first domino had fallen. And the rest were crashing down. Destroying her life, piece by piece. First, her job. Her boss had received the recordings first thing this morning. The affair, the lies, the business trips that had nothing to do with business? Yeah. That didn't look so good for a woman whose entire career was built on trust. By the time she realized what was happening, her email access had already been revoked. Her desk had been cleared. Security was waiting. Second, her reputation. The moment the video hit our friend group chat, it spread like wildfire. People who had worshipped her, who had called her loyal and devoted, now saw the truth. Her perfect image? Shattered. Destroyed. Gone. And then, finally, her family. Because when the recording reached them, when they saw what she had done, not just to me, but to all of us, her father disowned her. Her mother refused to take her calls. And her sister, my new partner in crime? She was right here, beside me. She begs for mercy. I knew the exact moment she realized there was no way out. That the walls were closing in. Because the next time she called, she left a voicemail. I pressed play. And I listened. Through the speaker, her voice cracked. Please, she sobbed. I know I made a mistake, I know I hurt you, but, please, just talk to me. Let me fix this. I can fix this. I smiled. Because I had been waiting for this part. Waiting for her to beg. To break. To suffer. I leaned in closer to the phone and whispered, just for me, just for her. You already did. And then, I deleted the message. The final nail in the coffin. As the elevator doors slid open, her sister turned to me, raising a brow. That was fast, she mused. I chuckled. Oh, babe, I murmured, slipping an arm around her waist. We're just getting started. Because my wife? She had played her game. She had made her moves. And she thought she had won. But now? Now she was nothing. And me? I was finally, truly, free. And damn, winning had never felt so good. The end. Would you have done the same? Or would you have taken the high road? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that will leave you speechless.